Might have been my daughter's Minecraft stream. Maybe they went too high. Let's see if we can restart. Where is Teletrim? Okay. See if we're working. Okay, now we're good. Sorry about that, everyone. So sorry. Where were we? We had a question. Let me find where we were. If not, I'll just do what I do and just keep talking. That's not what I want. Sorry, everyone. Okay. So, want to get through some more stuff, and then we'll talk about some Friday food swaps that I think you'll find quite good. Charlie's a fan, although he's a bit upset about me overheating my phone, so now he's not talking to us. Okay, let me just check one more thing. Okay, sorry about that. There we go. Okay, where did we leave off? Me blathering away. I love it. Yeah, so I guess one of the things I talked about, where is one of the problems? And I think, because the money makes things feel rushed, and the only way to do that is to either charge patients more or make the consult shorter. I think that it's a disservice to patients, and I think the government, sorry, I have a little drink of water. I think one of the things that the government doesn't understand is that people can look after their own health, for less than a cup of coffee a day, less than a Big Mac a day, whatever your poison is. And I've used that term loosely because, hey, McDonald's is tasty. It's available. Moderation. I think, again, one of the things is that, those consults are rushed and the money's going to come from somewhere. And I think people are willing, if people are informed and they're getting good value, I think they're willing to pay for their consults, And I think, that's where I'm coming from, is I want to provide personalized care, great care, care where people feel heard, the message is understood, and if it's not, there's a chance to make it understood or ask questions, and there's also a chance to ask those tough questions, be it by being given time, or a space like the live stream. Charlie Boneman 27 on live stream, ask a question. It's very embarrassing. That's okay. So I think that's where Teletrim comes in. That's where my passion was, and I think that's where the other doctors who work with me have that similar idea, is that we want to tailor care to you. We know you're unique. Your problem globally, weight, isn't unique, but you are unique, and your care should be unique to you. You should feel like the star of your own show. That's not to say that, there's an Oscar-winning performance, but if you feel improved and better, and that, someone's taking care of you and there with you on the journey and listening, I think that's something you'll tell your friends about and go, hey, come join me with this guy. His live stream is hilarious. At the worst of times. No, at his, come join me. This guy, he's happy to embarrass himself. He loves to talk. He loves to listen. Not just to the sound of my own voice. And I think that's the difference that I'm trying to make. We're, in Teletrim, are trying to make in the weight loss space is, we want to tailor our care to, to you, to the evidence, and to try to kind of bring it all into one sort of family. Oh, there we go. There's a question. What important details tend to get missed when time is tight? I think a lot of times it's those last minute questions, or the things that you just you're not quite sure about, you think you have a handle on, but you don't want to ask because the doctor's already told you 3 times, and you don't want it to be a 4th time, but you just want to be sure. I think it's those important little details. Or kind of going back to the start of the start is sometimes just how to use a medication. There's a lot of times where you give instructions, and we know that the system's broken. It's hard to get appointments, with the GP, with whatever. And so, doctors leave instructions, a plan to go, hey, okay, if this isn't working by this date, then increase this amount to that, or decrease if it's too much, or, and when you get all these if-then type things, unless you're a heavy math or computer science background person, nesting that many if-thens is just going to get too much, and we just want to make it simple. So I think making sure that we can close that loop of communication to make sure the patient's understood, and they can have that space to go ask the question if they don't know. Or a lot of times it's not the first question that's the problem, it's actually the one they want to ask when they're at the door, in case they want to run away because it's too embarrassing. No, because that's when they feel confident enough that the doctor is on their side, has their best interest, which doctors do. But is that doctor actually interested, or is he just interested? What can patients do if they leave an appointment feeling unheard? That is a good question. Here at Teletrim, we have the live stream, private live stream, so we give a chance to ask those questions. Or, we have places where you can make an opportunity to, have another appointment. Or if you just really hate us, we'll give you your money back. Hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully you go, you know what, I feel value, and I know this is going to be long term, but they're going to be here as support group, as mission control, as a friend, as someone in the audience laughing when you trip and fall, but helping you up. We won't laugh, I promise. We'll just laugh at me and my horrible jokes, dad jokes. So yeah, if they leave an appointment and they're feeling unheard, what can patients do if they leave an appointment feeling unheard? I think one of the things you can do is, after the fact, is send an email, send it to the practice manager and go, hey, I had my appointment, I asked these questions. Most doctors understand that the system needs a fix, okay? And most doctors, all doctors, they're out there to see you get well and to help. And they understand we're not available 24/7, but sometimes for the simple things, it's easy enough to just go, hey, look, can you just clarify this one more time? Or, when we finish this, I'm still not clear, to make another appointment. Or, if you really feel unheard, try to find a doctor that you do sync with, you don't have to stay married to a doctor that's just in a rush and, not giving you what you need medically, I guess, that TV series House, here he was, this brilliant guy after all the tests, solving these mysterious things, but he was kind of the biggest pain in the butt you may not want as your doctor. Where I think his friend Wilson, how much nicer and mannerful was Wilson. So I think you can always find another doctor. And I think something you can do pre-consult to try not to feel unheard is try and jot down your questions and bring them in with you, because then there's not that fear of forgetting and trying to hold everything in and trying to remember what you're going to ask while you're also trying to listen. So I think that can help, take a little bit of the pressure off the doctor, and can be a good thing to do. What are the most common frustrations you hear from patients? Yeah, like I said at the start, it's, they feel rushed, hey, one problem, in and out. I mean, I know I clicked one problem, but in and out. Or the doctor's listening and typing, or they don't have time to explain things really thoroughly. I mean, a lot of our population is aging. I mean, my mind's not as clear as it was 30 years ago. Now it's full of knowledge. That's why. I don't know what you were thinking. It's full of knowledge. But I think, this patients aren't feeling that they're getting, I wouldn't say value, but they're not getting that. Again, you hear me say all the time, they're not getting the art of medicine. They're not getting that thing that makes you go, I left this appointment. Yeah. And it's not necessarily the doctor's fault. I think you just got to find the right environment and the right doctor, and that's what I'm trying to create at Teletrim, what we're trying to create. What small changes could meaningfully reduce patient frustration? I think, everything is going to be money, and you go, look, I've been to all these doctors and every time it just hasn't been the same. If I go, look, for the cost of a cup of coffee a day, I don't have to be frustrated. I can be sure of my answer. I can, have someone who's going to be with me to help me get the outcome I want, and continue to stay on at that outcome or along that outcome. I think that's what you need. Is it does involve a little bit more money or a little bit more of your own time. Come in, join the live stream, even if it's just to poke fun at me. Give a shout out to Charlie, whatever. I think things that reduce patient frustration is giving them the chance to ask questions and be heard, and not be rushed. And that's what we don't want to do at Teletrim. We want to answer those questions. We want to make sure that you know where your treatment's going. And if you're not happy, that's fine. We want you to be on this journey to the end. We want you to be reaching your goals, staying at those goals, and hopefully it not being too onerous, too hard. So, and again, a lot of it goes back to the rushed consult, and that's why we try not to do that. There are such things as short consults. Some problems are quick and easy. Yeah, that's ring room. Here's some cream. Here's what you do. But I think doctor's appointments should never feel rushed, especially when it's your health. And rush care has become normalized, but it shouldn't be. Quality medical care takes time, and that's what patients and doctors need, is time. And as a doctor, I understand why so many people, patients and doctors, feel frustrated. The most frustrating thing is that feeling of being rushed and not heard and left without feeling you have the answers. And that's not to say the doctor has to have the answer. It may be something that is very complex. Medicine's complex. Weight loss is complex. But as long as there's a path and follow up, and sometimes we know what that is as doctors, but we don't communicate that well. So I think that's kind of, I understand why you're frustrated. I get that way too, as a patient and as a doctor, as a dad and a son. Love you, Dad. Cool. Let me take a little break talking about that. And the one thing I like on Friday is my little Friday food swaps. And here's one. I'm gonna say I invented it because not that I've Googled for it, but I've never seen it anywhere. And I think it's a good one. It's a coffee swap that's gonna save you 100 calories. Okay. What I do is I use 30 milliliters of evaporated milk in my plunger coffee. So I get the same creamy mouthfeel as a latte, but only 40 calories. Okay. So just for comparison, a regular latte can be anywhere from 75 to 170 calories, depending on what milk and what size. Okay. So with this food swap, what you get is the same flavor satisfaction. You get fewer calories, and that's a Friday food swap. Okay. Again, it's, now here's a food swap fail. This is where I learned the hard way. Okay. So a food swap fail with this is evaporated milk, not thickened cream. So 30 mils of thickened cream gives you fantastic mouthfeel, but it's about 110 calories. Okay. So you kind of trade in the wrong direction. Okay. So that one's a pretty good fail. Okay. So again, with our Friday food swaps, what I like is Friday food swaps, same flavor, fewer calories. Okay. Or, it's Friday, let's swap, not supper. So here is another excellent one from one of our staff at Teletrim. This was her, you could call it a win, but really it's good as a fail. It's totally a food swap fail. Her food swap fail was perhaps substituting or eating meat that hadn't been processed or handled very well for food that has been processed well. You can see where this is going. So the poor food, the poorly handled food, again, this one is not recommended, not evidence-based, and absolutely not endorsed by Teletrim or me at all. Again, swapping properly handled food for dodgy meat. What was the result of that? She did lose a little bit of weight. After 3 days of diarrhea and vomiting and missed work, and she really gained nothing else from that at all. So technically the scale went down, but I don't think food poisoning is a sustainable weight loss strategy. So if your weight loss plan involves gastroenteritis, just, please just eat the healthy chicken. Okay. Yeah. So food swap Friday, 30 milliliters of evaporated milk in your coffee. Again, the good thing is you're not missing out on the coffee. We're not substituting out any of that coffee. Again, the flavor from the evaporated milk comes from the milk solids. So that's kind of the difference between skim and whole milk. You might be able to actually use less whole milk than skim milk, because skim milk still has calories. It still has stuff you're going to have to deal with. Okay. So that's Food Swap Friday. I think let's stop here. Thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll see you next week on Monday around 5:10, which is a doctor 5 o'clock. We'll see you around 5:10, and we'll have another good live stream for everyone. So bring your questions. If not, I'll see you in the live stream or on the private stream for members. Okay. All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye.